It kind of clicked in my mind that there was a way to actually make money doing this full time. I was struggling a lot, like mentally. I was lost in that I really had no idea how I was going to get there. I was obsessed, like absolutely obsessed. Money was like the most consistent worry. We either hit bankruptcy or this works. We're definitely a lot more successful and a lot closer to where we wanted to be. Some of the things that we've covered in here would be shortcuts that would have made that process easier. Flow like a fine wine, smelling like fine pine. Yeah, is this the end or just the beginning?
Start the first podcast.
Start something amazing.
Yes. This is weird, but nice. It's weird. Cool. Got a lot of cameras on us.
A lot of cameras.
Should we start off then with, you know, what got you into filmmaking in the first place then?
The first time I properly picked up a camera was actually, I think, in the middle of the kind of early GoPro craze, like the GoPro 1 or GoPro Hero HD or something.
So what year was that? I
started to properly get interested in it in like 2011 into 2012.
And so you're how old?
Like 21. Although looking back as well, I also realised that I'd always been kind of interested in it. I just hadn't really realised it or thought about doing it myself. Like I'd been very into film and documentaries, and if I'd ever listened to music or something as a kid, I enjoyed kind of editing stuff in my head to it, for example, but I didn't really realise what I was doing.
So you'd listen to music and you'd think what kind of video clips or things could go with that music?
Essentially. I guess in my head, if I was listening to a track that I really liked, I'd be I don't know, directing an action scene from a film or a music video or something. But I'd never really put two and two together that I could then actually go and do that in the filmmaking industry or as an editor or something like that. So yeah, I got one of those early GoPros. I think I just jumped on that bandwagon when all the massive GoPro hype was out, and I was really into skiing and lacrosse, and there's stuff that I thought would be really cool with the GoPro. So I waited.
You're 21, did you say?
Yeah, I think I was around 21.
So this is at university?
Yeah, so I was at university.
In Manchester?
Yeah, second year of university. And I was living with a good friend of mine, Nick, and he was quite a keen photographer. He had a fairly nice Nikon DSLR, and he liked taking photos. And I was kind of interested in that. And through that kind of encouraged me to look at getting my own DSLR, but with more of a video focus. So I waited until an installment of my student loan came in.
Classic.
And then basically spent all of it on a Canon 550D.
Oh wow.
Which is also known as the T2i, I think, in the American market. But and a kit lens for that, and started using that to make proper video that wasn't with the GoPro.
So what were the first things that you were making then?
I mean, the first kind of stuff that I was making was, I was really enjoying having a DSLR and a lens that could give me a shallow depth of field look.
Like most people, yeah.
Yeah, everyone kind of covets that. So I think when you first get into filmmaking.
It's the first difference between using your mobile phone to using a camera. It's the most obvious initial thing.
Yeah.
Most difference you see, yeah.
And so, I guess the very first stuff I was making was some attempt at kind of artsy, atmospheric stuff, around Manchester or various things where it was just constantly slightly out of focus, and I was trying to pull focus on things just because, as you said, when you've just moved to a DSLR or something which can have shallow depth of field, controllable focus like that, it's kind of fun to play with that for a while. The first thing I properly made into a project, though, was some lacrosse documentaries, basically filming my university lacrosse club, who I'd been playing for. Some of the things that I'd taken a lot of inspiration from online were sports documentaries, and especially lacrosse documentaries coming from America.
Because that's what you were playing at the time?
Yeah, because I'd started playing lacrosse at university when I got there, and I'd got really into it, and I was just keen to try and replicate and make my own thing similar to what some like of the good like big teams were doing in America and do something similar in the UK.
Because you saw that no one else was really doing that kind
Yeah,
of
I mean, lacrosse is quite it's definitely a minority sport in the UK. It didn't have much kind of media attention or anything like that. And I was passionate about it as a sport, and I'd seen some really cool stuff be made from it. So I was like, yeah, I want to try and do something with that. And I had my university team there as like a prime kind of willing, candidate to be filmed and follow bits of their season and film matches and stuff.
So did you just ask the coach, can I have a crack at?
Yeah, I just suggested it to the team and to some of the captains and the coaches, and they were really keen because, I mean, like with most university sports, people are just, really happy to get some extra media attention and something they can use for, I don't know, getting sponsors or anything like that. The reason that I was looking at filming rather than playing was because I actually, at this point, I was also basically in the process of dropping out of studying at the university, so I was no longer going to be eligible to play. But I still really wanted to be involved with the club. I was really passionate about it, so filming it, traveling with the team, doing a bit of a documentary was a nice way as well for me to be still part of the team.
Okay, so one thing, so you're saying at that point you were already thinking I want to drop out of uni?
Yeah, so I'd pretty much made that decision around the time that I bought the Canon 550D.
Was that decision completely related? Well, yeah, how related was that to video, or was it not at all?
At the time, not massively. All I knew at the time with dropping out of uni was that I really wasn't enjoying it. And
what course were you doing at the time?
I was doing combined honours studies, politics and philosophy. I mean, sometimes if you're not enjoying something, it's still worth pushing through because there's, things to be gained from that. But I felt that, especially with my degree, it wasn't going anywhere professionally that I could see myself using it. And I didn't even think that it was going to be worth very much, even if I did well in it. So I kind of made the decision of, I'm not going to torture myself to get something which is going to be completely worthless.
So what was your mindset at the time then? Because you're saying it wasn't correlated to video. Did you have some sort of a plan already to think, I know what I'm going to try? Or was it, let's just have a crack with this video, but I'm not really sure? What was your mindset basically? Yeah, I mean, my mindset was that I definitely didn't want to be at uni. That was for sure. But my mindset was also that I felt like I just really wanted to get into the real world and just work and do stuff, because I'd been feeling that way since the age of like kind of 17, 18. But I think I made a poor, rushed decision to go to uni. I kind of realized that how bad that decision was that I'd made. So yeah, I really just wanted to be kind of get out
doing something productive, like in the workforce, just making money and like just a real job. It didn't really have to be anything at that point. I entertained the idea of trying again to join the Royal Marines because I'd done that previously, but that had been basically written off by injury when I was kind of 17, 18. I only flirted with that idea really after I quit uni. I don't think my heart wasn't fully in it really anymore, like trying to come back to something like that.
Was there something that pushed you over the edge?
Into no longer wanting to do that?
Yeah, because obviously you must have been thinking for a while, yeah, I'm not sure about this, but it's like middle of second year, so you've done a fair slog. So was there a moment that pushed you over to the edge going?
I don't think I can trace it back to one particular moment. I think there are a lot of things wrong on my course and with the way things were set up at Manchester at the time. In that, for instance, like combined studies students tended to like slip through the gaps because you were part of the combined studies faculty rather than part of like the politics faculty or part of the School of English. And you had a tendency to, because you were part of neither and you were part of some other weird in between, you tended to just fall through the cracks and not really have much of a support network.
So it wasn't really one particular thing, but my heart wasn't in it, and I was struggling a lot, like mentally, like with my mental health, just trying to get through it, that I figured it wasn't worth it.
Time to jump out.
Yeah. But the one positive thing from university for me was playing lacrosse in the lacrosse club. So making documentaries with them and filming with them, was a great way for me to, keep hold of that and keep doing that. So
what kind of films were you making for them then?
So, I was experimenting a lot. But the main thing that I was aiming at was documentaries. So, something following how the team's kind of season is going and profiling a few individual players, interview-led, mixed with kind of like cool match highlights and stuff that I just thought looked pretty cool because it was a very fast-moving game, quite physical. So I wanted to show off how cool it looked as well.
So I assume you got a job after you left uni, and how often were you?
Yeah, so I was, obviously I wasn't really making any money from making video really at that point.
Were you doing it for free?
So I was just doing it completely for free off my own back, just because I enjoyed it and really wanted to do it with the lacrosse club. So at the same time I was also working at a bar in Manchester Airport. I was on like full time there basically, and that was just me just doing what was necessary to earn money and kind of survive, because I think that was another thing that had really got to me at uni, and that I felt very dependent on others and my parents because I wasn't kind of able to go and earn money and balance that time. And in hindsight, I could have personally taken more responsibility for that whilst I was at uni and managed my time better. But I didn't. But as soon as I was out of uni, I was very keen that I wanted to actually earn money and kind of be able to have my own freedom and do my own thing. So I was doing that basically full time, but I asked for Wednesdays and Thursdays off. So Wednesday and Thursday would be my weekend, because Wednesdays was when the university lacrosse matches happened, and I wanted to be able to go film lacrosse matches. And Thursdays, because obviously after there's a big night out normally on Wednesday night, so I wanted to be able to go on that as well. And then, but my manager at the bar was kind enough to arrange it so that I had Wednesdays and Thursdays off, so I was able to film.
When would you edit?
When would I edit?
Because that's what I'm trying to work out in my head.
I mean, I just late at night, I guess. Really, there's a lot of
just made time.
Yeah, I mean, I looked forward to editing. Like I'd come home from a shift at the bar and be like, yeah, now I can actually.
It was kind of your escape.
Make this. Yeah,
nice.
It was a fun opportunity for me to do that. And at the same time, I was experimenting with like a lot of other like filming things and just trying little things. Just going out and trying to shoot scenic stuff and things around the city and anything that could really, test or evolve my skills.
So were you posting these videos that you're making anywhere?
Yeah, so when I'd got the first episode of the kind of documentary, because it was supposed to be a documentary series, that was something I was always aiming for. When I'd got the first episode finished, posted that on YouTube. And I think it got quite a lot of attention because some of my teammates and like the captain at the time, he like got on Twitter and was just like, he really liked it. He was just spamming it out to random kind of lacrosse celebs and big names in the US, and some of them started kind of reposting it because they were quite interested. Then. An American lacrosse YouTube channel called the Lacrosse Network got in touch with me probably a few days after I'd posted the first episode, and were like, we'd like to host this episode and future episodes on the Lacrosse Network YouTube channel so that it actually has an audience, and because they were really interested in it.
And how did that feel at the time?
I mean, that felt great. I was like on top of the world. I felt like I'd just like absolutely won basically, because I was like, yeah, I mean, that was
at the time, that for me was like I don't know, the pinnacle of.
You like made it.
Yeah, I like made it. That was it. But yeah, so, and I think the Americans were interested in it because seeing lacrosse played in Britain was like kind of novel to them, because it's fairly big in America, although not huge, but it's very small in Britain. And there was kind of a lot of interest on the American side to see how lacrosse just like looked and was played in other countries around the world. So yeah, I went on over the next 6 months, I guess, to make several more episodes of that. And then at the same time, I also started working with the England national lacrosse team, because they'd seen that, and then the head coach of the England team, Matt Bagley, also sent me an email and was like, hey, you want to come and do the same kind of thing for the England team? And I was like, yeah, that's amazing. Like, of course I do.
So how long after you'd quit university was this?
So I guess this was happening in probably like a period of like, probably a year. Like, so it wasn't like I quit university, then the next week I'd made this documentary, and the next week I was doing all this stuff. It was kind of a process. And there was a lot of time when I was just like working at the bar, or I also delivered Chinese takeout for a while, for a few months, just to make some money. So yeah, this was a process, even just getting to there. But like getting my stuff on the Lacrosse Network and getting asked by England to do a documentary about them really felt like a big win, having kind of basically quit uni and been doing this bar job. It felt like a very big win for me.
Yeah, it's a very big change.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah, not being in the best state of mental health, leaving uni, thinking, what am I going to do? To a year later, thinking, this is interesting.
Yeah, definitely. It was a big step up, because it went from me kind of spinning my wheels and not really knowing where I was going, but having an idea that I wanted to try, to suddenly, at least I wasn't getting paid still for the filming, but at least I had the validation that people were actually interested in what I was making, and there was, I don't know, some kind of path there. But even then, I wasn't really thinking massively about doing it commercially or getting paid much for it.
This was just for fun?
Yeah, it was just for fun, really. And I'd like post stuff. When a documentary episode was finished, I'd post it on like Facebook or on lacrosse Facebook groups, and kind of anxiously wait for like comments and the likes to roll in and all of that.
Wait for the validation.
Yeah, for that. I mean, it was very validating to feel that you'd been able to make something that people actually enjoyed and wanted to watch. And I got a massive buzz out of that. Then off the back of that, some people like within the lacrosse industry who had like small companies or things like that started asking me, oh, can you make a little promo video for us for 100 quid or something? And it was like, because I kind of became known as like the guy within the lacrosse industry who was kind of making cool video stuff. So companies and people who wanted video, who were linked to that, started to approach me with small jobs and stuff like that.
Found your own little niche.
Yeah, and then I kind of started to realize that there was actually a route to getting paid for this. And I think as soon as I realized that, I was pretty much dead set on basically finding a way.
Was that after your first paycheck? Was that the moment?
Yeah, I think it was as soon as someone offered me money to make something for them. Like, it kind of clicked in my mind that there was a way to actually make money doing this full time. And I was like, wow, I really, really enjoy doing this. This is a lot of fun. And now people are offering to pay me for it. If I go about this in the right way, then this could be my job, like full time, which would be amazing. So I just started, really going for it and trying to find and do projects. And at first it was mostly just sports stuff and lacrosse-based stuff, like with the national governing body and with companies and people who were kind of linked to the lacrosse world in Manchester. And then it slowly
opened up into like sports nutrition companies, and then a PR company, Truth PR in Manchester, who are still one of our clients.
Yeah.
Got in touch one day and asked for like a corporate interview thing, and so yeah, I went and shot that, and
that was your first corporate job.
I think probably Truth PR and a nutrition company called Monkey Nutrition were a couple of my first like proper clients outside the world of lacrosse, which then kind of started to lead to other things.
So before you got these paying clients and you had that moment where you're basically like, right, this is what I'm going to focus on to try and make a job out of this. Did you still feel quite lost in what you were doing generally, but you just knew that this was a fun thing for you?
I knew I wanted to make money making films, one way or another.
But it felt like a big dream that wasn't necessarily possible.
Yeah, but I was lost in that I really had no idea how I was going to get there, how I was going to go from earning like £100 for a video to actually trying to make a living. But it was something I knew I wanted, but I really had no idea what the route there was.
The vision was there, but you just had no clue what was going on.
Like I had no classical training or any official training in making films or video or anything. So the most obvious thing that presented itself to me as being a way to do this properly was like improve my skill set. So try and get better at various parts of making a film. And two, was to buy the right kit, which is the classic kind of starting out freelance filmmaker thing. But it is true to an extent that like in order to deliver some things, like I can't do a corporate interview if I don't have a microphone, for example. So there were some things like that like I had to
There's a base
slowly
level.
build up to, and I couldn't edit anything unless I had a computer and an editing program capable of actually editing.
Yeah.
So there's a few things that
I'm aware of that.
yeah. There are a few things that, I built like an Amazon wish list of stuff, and I was basically, I felt that I knew I needed, and was essentially all the money that I earned working at the bar, like whatever I didn't need to survive, like month by month, I'd spend on kit. Like probably for a year, I was obsessed, like absolutely obsessed with it.
This kit's pretty expensive, so I assume you were being super frugal.
Yeah, I mean, I was barely earning above minimum wage, so I wasn't earning much money. And yeah, so I was being pretty frugal. I was still living with my good friend Nick, who was finishing his third year of uni at that point. So we were very much still living kind of the frugal like student lifestyle. And fortunately, Nick is a very put together person anyway. He's good at saving money. He's very kind of mature, and he's got a good head on his shoulders about stuff like that. So that helped me also, kind of save and work towards buying the stuff that I needed.
Because I assume, I think at uni you went out quite a lot. Is that right to think that?
Yeah, so definitely in my first year of uni and into second year, I was doing like a lot of drinking and going out a lot. And there was still some of that. One of the reasons I was still in Manchester was because rather than having moved back with my parents, was that I really enjoyed being around, my uni lacrosse friends, and I wanted to be part of that social scene. But I was starting to get a bit like more careful with my money because I actually had a reason to save it and work towards something then. And I'd be like, one of the big things that I really needed was an Apple computer because, for some reason, I only thought of Final Cut Pro as being the editing program that I wanted to use. And
YouTube video or something that just...
unbeknownst to me, Final Cut Pro 10 or X or whatever you want to call it had literally just come out. And I knew that obviously I needed an Apple computer, a Mac for that. And actually the cheapest option for that was actually one of their like base level iMacs. So I was like saving for like the 21-inch iMac for ages. And yeah, I was like on their website all the time, looking at the price, reading all Mac rumors and all of that. And so yeah, I was just obsessed with trying to get the kit that I needed.
So you managed to save up enough to slowly build. Was it just the amount of kit you needed? Do you think at the time you bought the right amount for what you were doing, or do you think you spent too much? Because I know this is something we've talked about before, that some people, spend too much money on kit thinking it's going to give them big returns on their business.
Yeah, I think in general, I think largely by luck, I generally got it right, but there were some things that I bought that were just totally superfluous, that were a bit gimmicky, or like, I was obsessed with the idea that I needed like a shoulder rig thing for a DSLR, and it's like, seemed like the way to go. It turns out no one uses shoulder rigs. Like, I don't know why, but I thought that was going to take me to the next level, and it didn't. It never was going to. You don't need one, so I definitely wasted some money. But yeah, overall it wasn't too bad. Like I wasn't buying a new piece of gear thinking that it would make me like a better filmmaker, or I was buying it because I genuinely felt that I didn't have something that I needed to do a job for a client, like a glide cam, because I really wanted to do like
moving shots.
Yeah, moving smooth shots, and the glide cam was one of the options for that. So at that point, I was still working full time at the bar, but that started to naturally change because, like, I think it came into winter, which is like quiet season at an airport. So they moved us on to lower hour contracts. And at that time, that actually worked really well for me because I was starting to do some more video stuff. So I was like able to work less at the bar and do like spend more time either practicing my filmmaking skills or actually going and doing stuff. But I wasn't doing like a huge amount of film work, nowhere near enough to survive without taking another job.
Every now and again.
Yeah. Another big, what felt like a really big piece of progress for me then was, I think someone at British universities and colleges sports, who are the governing body for university sport in Britain, got in touch with me because they'd seen some of the other uni sports stuff that I'd been making, like the lacrosse, and they were interested in working together, I think, on some rugby stuff. And again, that felt like a really, really big step up because it's like a national governing body, a new sport in rugby, which is obviously a much bigger sport in the UK. So yeah, that felt like another. At that point, I started to feel like, oh yeah, like I'm a filmmaker, kind of like people are coming to me, and I'm getting paid to make documentaries and films and stuff.
So is it at that point that you went part-time working at the bar, or?
I'm struggling to remember completely exactly when I left, but it was around that kind of time that I actually like stopped.
You made the jump.
Yeah, at some point, like I think around the time that I started working with Bucks as well, was that I was like, I'm just gonna go for it.
How much were you making compared to your job at the time?
I probably had a couple of months where I'd made a little bit more in the month from filmmaking than I had from working at the bar.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, okay, well now, in theory, if I don't work at the bar anymore and spend that time making films, then I can add that together and make more money. But it wasn't really an economical decision. Like I was thinking about what I needed to make to survive. Obviously I didn't want to be destitute, but I was more trying to just keep doing the thing that I really enjoyed doing, and I was willing to do whatever to try and make that happen, basically. And then once I quit working at the bar, I like really started like kind of trying to think of myself and introduce myself as being like I guess filmmaker. I struggled for a long time to really describe what it is that I did or was. I didn't really want to sound very pretentious, but I don't know. It's kind of hard not to sometimes. And I'm a filmmaker. It's like, but that progression just kept going and
just picking up more and more.
Yeah, every time I made a bit more money, I'd buy some more kit. and yeah, slowly adding more clients.
Did you have any situations, jumping into freelance where, quite any difficult times where you started doubting yourself?
I mean, I messed some stuff up, that's for sure. I got asked to do some like random like corporate interview things with some customers of this, I don't know, food company or something, and I had to go to like a supermarket, and there was like a person from a PR agency stopping them and asking them questions, and I was supposed to be filming that. I just didn't have a clue what I was doing. I just messed the audio up completely, and I thought it was kind of all right, and basically sent it off to them, and they were like, "Yeah, no, this is unusable."
So did
and
they?
And I was like, like that was like, yeah. I mean, that was fairly early on. But I just didn't know what I was doing.
Did they not pay you for that then?
No, I don't think they paid me, and like, no, they didn't pay me, and they were like, I mean, I think I said I was very sorry and I was willing to correct it, but I actually just never heard back from them.
Yeah.
I think they were just like, screw this.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
So yeah, I can't even remember what the name of that company was, but it's probably a good thing.
Probably better not to mention it.
But yeah, I mean, so I messed some stuff up. That's for sure.
So financially though, because I know a lot of people probably jumping into being a freelancer, that's one of their biggest worries. Quitting a job.
Oh, I mean, yeah, definitely. Like, money was like the most consistent like worry for years and years, like of just not, like barely scraping by, basically, was what I was making. And you could have like good months where I had, or like working with Bucks, for example, on like a rugby series, I thought that like I really had it nailed because I was doing like 4 episodes of this rugby series and getting paid like £500 per episode. So I was like, great, this is going to go on for like 3 months, and I know I'm going to get paid this amount into the future, and that felt really good. So those were the kind of level of like wins that I was taking at that point. I was like, yeah, like the idea of getting paid like £1,000 or a couple of grand for a big project was like kind of the height of my aspirations, I think, at that point.
So how did you deal with that, financial insecurity or whatever you like to call it? Like, what advice or steps would you take to other freelancers or other people thinking about going into it?
I mean, I think if I'm talking about advice for someone who's thinking of going freelance, I'd say have a plan, like work hard to make it happen, but be prepared to massively cut your lifestyle in half if you're used to having a nice lifestyle, and you can say goodbye to that right now because you're not going to have it. Very fortunately for me, I went from being an unemployed student essentially to earning minimum wage, so it's not like I'd gone from earning £40,000-50,000 a year, so it wasn't much of a shock. It was kind of just like, well, more of the same. But yeah, I think if I'm talking about advice, yeah, be prepared to kind of scrimp and save and just be extremely frugal, and also be prepared, like be mentally prepared for the stress that financial insecurity brings. Because if you're not the kind of person who's going to be able to survive that, then maybe it's not for you, because that will take a massive toll on you mentally. If you don't have a plan and you don't feel confident that you're working towards something, it's very difficult to put up with that level of financial insecurity. The only thing that got me through it was that I was just convinced that there was like this big goal at the end of it that I was going to get to somehow. So that's kind of the only thing that made me get through that, I think.
And was there a big goal?
Well, I don't know. I guess where we are now was
Yeah.
the goal. Like,
Yeah.
And I mean, the goalposts are always kind of moving further down the road as you reach them. But yeah, the goal was to find some level of financial security by doing regular big projects that I was actually interested in.
You said like have a plan. What was your plan then at the time?
Everyone will tell you that it's like, I know, is it Mike Tyson says everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. So it's like, well, like, yeah, I mean, no plan survives contact with the enemy. So it's like, you can have the best laid plan in the world, but as soon as you start going out and doing something, things are going to change, things are going to go wrong, you're going to have to adapt. But when I say have a plan, I mean like have some idea of an end goal of where you're trying to get to, because holding on to that goal is going to give you a lot of strength to get through the hard things that you've got to get through as a freelancer or a young business owner in order to get there. And obviously you also have something of a plan. Think, right, I'm going to get these clients, or I'd like to get these types of clients, so I'm going to aim for them, and then I think that they'd lead to these types of clients and these opportunities, so I'm going to go for those, because that's what I was doing. I was thinking, like university sports, well, who else is, how else can I earn money through sports? And I was thinking of sponsors and kit sponsors, national governing bodies, stuff like that. So I was just trying all of these different ideas. So even if most of it falls flat on its face, it'll still get you somewhere. It's better than just sitting and hoping for work to come to you. So
I think out of what you said, probably when you're saying you're trying to look for certain kinds of clients, maybe you weren't, I don't know if you were thinking about it at the time, but it, as you're saying, university sports were kind of a recurring stream of income of, it wasn't one-off shoots.
yeah,
Were you thinking at the time, like trying to find more, people, what do you call them?
projects or like recurring clients? Or?
Recurring clients, I think that's the word, yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping for, the golden standard for me was to get like a documentary series that was supposed to last a whole season, and you'd get paid, I don't know, per episode or whatever. And if you were going to do a whole season of that, then you've got guaranteed income for 5 months or whatever. So that's what I saw as a bit of an opportunity with like Bucks and university sports. So yeah.
Try and find situations where you can get that situation essentially.
Yeah, yeah. I was
sort
looking
of
for that.
stability.
Yeah, I knew that stability was necessary, and that was kind of my best plan of getting there.
At this point, it doesn't sound like everything was coming to you, all these jobs. Were you doing any outreach to find jobs at the time?
I was, but I just wasn't very successful with it. Like I was kind of emailing a lot of people. Once I'd made some stuff, I was approaching other people and what I thought were similar companies and trying to get meetings with them and stuff. I can't say that I wasn't particularly successful with that. And I think that's one thing that could have massively accelerated my position. If I were to go back and do it again, I'd be more proactive about going out and having a better marketing strategy, because I was doing something, but it wasn't really working particularly well. Mostly word of mouth was what was kind of getting me new clients, which is a form of marketing in itself. If you're doing good work for your current clients and they're recommending you, that's never a bad thing. But
it's better not to just rely on.
You don't want to just rely on that. You want to have a plan for getting more. And that's probably one of the biggest areas that I suffered in, is that I didn't really have a set plan of how I'd go and get clients. So it was just kind of sending off emails and trying things and doing stuff. And I didn't have much success with that, I don't think.
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing, it's almost like you don't have much control over people's word of mouth. Well, you can obviously do, your best work, treat your clients well, all that kind of thing. But it's not like if you got very good at doing certain kind of outreach or certain type of marketing, which is a bit more predictable in a way. Yeah. It's more like you kind of just got to hope for the world to, you do good work and then you hope that everything goes well.
Yeah. Yeah. That was what was essentially happening. That wasn't all that I was doing, but I was in a situation where enough stuff was coming to me that I think I allowed myself to be a bit lazy in my marketing efforts, when I should have been sending out 30 emails a day, or making 30 calls a day, or going to, even just going out on the street and going into businesses and speaking to them. I should have been doing something like that. And that's probably the biggest thing that I think I could have improved on to accelerate the process if I was to do it again.
What do you think was kind of the next thing then that changed your journey from this point?
So the next thing, I guess, is teaming up with Julian and making Teralon. So the process that I was just talking about of being a freelancer and doing these kind of random jobs here and there and slowly building on that, I had about like a year of doing that fairly successfully. Like I don't know, I think I looked at some of my old accounts recently for some tax reasons, and I'd made something like 18 or 19,000 pounds in a year freelancing as a cameraman.
Was that your first year?
I can't say that was truly my first year. It was my first full year.
Okay, that's decent.
Yeah, which is not bad. I was surprised actually when I looked back at it, and because it didn't feel like that much. Probably because I was still buying my own kit, and obviously, well, it's not that much money, but
you're just investing everything that you're making into yourself.
I was just investing everything that I was making and drinking what was left over. That was the kind of thing. But, so I was making kind of enough to scrape by. The next thing was teaming up with Julian.
So how long had you known Julian before that?
So Julian and I had actually met in what was our first year of university. We'd met at some random party or something in halls. Yeah. He wasn't at my halls, but he was, there with a friend or something. And we'd become like Facebook acquaintances. So we didn't really know each other.
Yeah. Just one of those people at uni that
just like a random uni person.
Twice.
And early on in my kind of freelance career. He had he was doing like portrait painting at the time, and he'd reached out to me because he'd seen that I was releasing these like lacrosse documentaries and making video. He was like, "Oh, do you want to team up and do something?" Like, I think he was keen to basically have a film made of him doing some portraits, and he had some pretty interesting ideas about it.
So when he asked you this, you were still, people, just kind of Facebook friends.
Yeah. He was just like, oh, like, hey, looks like you're doing some cool stuff. I do this. Do you want to collaborate on something? So yeah, we did that and made like a little film of him doing this portrait of a guy at this like cool kind of like rundown location somewhere in Manchester. That was fun.
What was this at uni?
Yeah.
So
I wasn't in. So this is sometime in the middle of like towards. Somewhere in the middle of what would have been my second year, but I'd kind of dropped out by that point.
So you basically just dropped out?
Yeah.
Started doing documentaries, yeah.
Yeah, and we spent like a freezing, I don't know, Saturday morning or something at this random venue outside, and he was like spray painting this thing, and it was pretty cool. And yeah, so we did that, and through doing that, we basically just became friends, and I think we collaborated on some other stuff, basically making like little videos about the portraits and things like that.
So this time he hadn't really done any video stuff?
Yeah, he had like a Canon 500D, which is like the one before mine.
But it was just a thing that he had like taken
and he was making a few videos and photos because he wanted to do it to market his portrait making business.
Okay, so
but I think I was further down the line in video making at that point. So we were kind of collaborating on a couple of different things, and we became friends. And then he essentially continued his uni journey all the way to graduation. And in that next year, I kind of made progress as being a freelancer. And then after he finished uni, he moved down to London, where his dad lives. And he was looking at applying for graduate schemes. And because we were friends, I was starting to get a couple of freelance jobs that brought me to London. And I would come and crash at his, and I'd shoot something, crash at his, we'd go out, do something like that on a weekend. And after doing that for a little while, he had kind of lost interest in being a graduate scheme person. And
I assume he wasn't making enough from his portraits to see that as a...
No, like for a while he was thinking, oh, maybe I could do portraits full time. And I think he made pretty good money per portrait, but I don't think he could do enough to make enough money. And also, I think he really lost the passion of just doing essentially the same kind of thing over and over again for money.
Yeah.
But he was like within the kind of creative industry space. So one evening I was crashing at his and his dad's, and he was like, "Yeah, do you want to maybe think about teaming up and making a company?" Because I think from his perspective, although I didn't feel like it at the time, I was doing fairly well as a freelance filmmaker. And like, you know, I was traveling quite a lot. I'd got involved with some skiing stuff and some sailing stuff. So I'd been to Croatia, I'd been to like south of France with some more uni skiing stuff.
Frog, amphibious animals.
Good, okay. Thank you.
Alexa, yeah.
Good. Yeah, so I'd been traveling a bit, so it definitely, even though I wasn't like making crazy money, I think what I was doing looked very attractive to him as well. So he was keen to kind of team up and see if we could make that a thing.
And what was his level of video at the time when he was asking you this?
Like a keen amateur, I guess.
So he was he making videos outside of, you know, doing it to
Yeah,
promote
he was
himself?
kind of just making stuff for fun, like his own stuff. He wasn't doing any paid stuff, really.
Do you think because he was friends with you that you influenced him quite a bit in terms of, you know, starting to play more around with the camera?
Yeah, I think probably. I think that would be fair to say. He'd always been interested in it independently of me.
Yeah.
But I think when the opportunity kind of arose for us to team up and for it to become a professional thing, he started to really want to increase his own skill set and grow. And I felt like I knew deep down that like freelancing the way I was just a stepping stone to like the next phase, because I don't really know why, but for some reason, like I was talking about having a plan, my plan was never, when I kind of looked into the future very vaguely, it wasn't just to be a freelancer.
Yeah.
I wanted to present myself and think of myself as being like a company. Like, I don't know why. But I saw teaming up with Julian as being an opportunity to start making that happen, because when you team up with someone, you become greater than the sum of your parts. So
Yeah.
one person working alone as a freelancer, it's very difficult to build a brand and run a company. Whereas two people working together is exponentially better than just one person. Like, so.
Or just two individuals?
Yeah, it's so much better than just there's two individuals. Like, you become like an actual kind of brand in a company. You can start to build, you know, a style and
Especially being able
things
to like
that.
bounce ideas off each other and help each other
Yeah.
mentally,
Yeah,
push each other through situations.
yeah, it's a big psychological support as well, knowing that someone else is doing it with you, and being able to generate a lot of new ideas and get excited about stuff I think is really big. So yeah, we kind of officially started Teralon. Julian's dad recommended some accountants to us, and they got us set up officially as a company. Got a company bank account. I mean, it was funny because we had good advice from Julian's dad, who's been run his own business, and we had got the accountants to set it all up properly. It was like we had like a properly registered and incorporated company, and we were a limited company from day one, even though we weren't required to be. And that was part of the plan for us. We wanted immediately to present ourselves as like a fully legit brand and company. So we wanted to be fully incorporated, a limited company. We wanted to be Teralon Media Limited, because we felt that gave an image of being a legit company, even though we were just essentially two guys who just really didn't have much of an idea what we were doing, like 22, 23 years old. So yeah, and so we have this company bank account and everything. There's no money in it, and I remember being really excited because I'd just done a freelance job, and I made up the invoice for that and put Teralon's details on it because we just started Teralon, and that was like the first money that got paid into the company bank account, and that was quite exciting.
So you basically got your first big check into Teralon account.
I wouldn't say it was that big.
Oh,
but
sorry.
It was,
A
a check.
check. A check. Yeah, well, a big moment.
Yeah, it was a big moment.
So yeah, how did you guys progress then?
So obviously I had all my freelance clients and they all essentially became Teralon clients. And some of them were growing and progressing quite naturally. Like Truth PR, who I'd been doing a couple of small corporate videos for, they were starting to get us involved in some slightly bigger projects. And when I say slightly bigger, I mean ones that could maybe be like £2,000 to £4,000, which when you've got an empty company bank account is a lot of money. I started doing stuff like that. And I think something that Julian did, and he was very keenly aware of, was that because he hadn't been freelancing, he didn't bring any kind of clients to the table initially, like he didn't bring with him any clients. So he was very focused on, building his filmmaking skill set and, working on Teralon as a brand, getting our website and logo and stuff set up, and then trying to make an effort to start bringing in, fresh clients. Because I think he didn't, obviously he didn't want to feel like just a dead weight, because I brought some clients, and I think he wanted to, start contributing as well.
Because I think at first look, people might think you're making a certain amount of money, you're doing all the work technically, and then you're bringing in someone who's not necessarily as experienced and who has no clients, and you could, in theory, just be halving your salary for doing the exact same amount of thing.
Yeah, no, definitely in theory you could, but I think that's another thing that you've got to be, like, if you're thinking about starting a business and there's someone who's willing to do it with you and they're keen and you're kind of a good fit, then, just don't be too selfish, because it's like, I was earning some money as a freelancer, but if you're committed to teaming up with someone and starting a business, then you should have already recognized that, as I said, the company is more than just the sum of its parts. And in the long run, you teaming up together will yield such greater results than anything you could achieve on your own, that it's in your long-term interest to just be pretty selfless and just like go with it. As long as they've got to bring something to the table, but don't just count pennies at that stage, because your objective is then to grow your company together, not to individually enrich yourself. So
at this point, was it 50-50 straight down the line?
Yeah, everything was 50-50, 50-50 shares, 50-50 on decision making. So anything that came into the company account from then on was, half his, half mine. That was the beginning of it, really.
Were you basically best mates at this point? Already?
We'd become very good friends over the couple of years of having been collaborating with each other, and then I'd been, just crashing at his and stuff. So we'd become very good friends.
Because a lot of people might see that as a big risk going into business, with a very good friend of yours. Was there any situations where, I don't know, really tested your friendship?
Oh yeah, no, like, make no mistakes, running a business with your friend is going to really put strain on your relationship. There's no doubt about that. Because at the end of the day, if you're running a business and there's two or more of you involved, you're not going to agree on everything. And you shouldn't agree on everything. If you agree on everything, then there's probably something wrong. So at some point, you're going to have differences of opinion on potentially very major things about the direction of the business, and you're going to have to find a way to debate those and reach some kind of compromise that's not, damaging to the business.
And your relationship.
Yeah, and your relationship. I didn't give it much thought. I wasn't worried that we were no longer going to be friends. Julian's dad gave us some very good advice early on, and it was linked to that, don't be selfish. Now that you've started a company, think of, like, it's basically the company over everything. Like, don't think of how much money am I going to be able to make from this personally, or what commission can I get from this, or has Julian spent more money this month on something, or did I not take out as much money as him this month?
Or contributions.
Yeah, or whatever it is. just be focused on what you can do that will make the company grow. And if you both take that attitude in good faith, then I think the company will do much better because of it.
Yeah, solid advice.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Going back to what we were saying, so, Julian started up with you and his main focus was more marketing the brand, which, as we were saying before, was probably one of your biggest weaknesses as an individual freelancer.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's going to be the case for a lot of freelancers, because as a freelancer, you get a lot of, if you get a lot of jobs, that's great, but you've got to do those jobs and you can't be out marketing yourself, and you probably don't have much of an idea how to market yourself, and you probably don't have much of a brand because you're a freelancer, not a brand. So that's probably one of the big reasons why I teamed up with Julian, is that I knew that together we could make a brand, and it was perfect that while he wasn't doing as much client work, he was working on the brand and all the assets that make a brand. And he was out, really trying to drum up clients.
What was he doing out the gate, really?
He was doing like the basics of like just getting a website, logo, copy up, like photos of us, all that stuff, which is not, those things don't make a brand, but they're all assets that come together to be part of your brand image. And he was also, I think he was just approaching people and like businesses and people who he thought, could be good clients for us. Like stuff like, the pub at the end of his road and things like that, which actually turned into a client. Yeah. I think that was one of Julian's first kind of proper shoots, actually. He approached them and they ended up hiring us, and he shot the video for that and made it. And I think that was a pretty big win, I think, for us at the time.
Had you, before then, really shot with anyone else, or had you always been a one-man band?
Yeah, no, I'd pretty much just been a one-man band. So again, that was something else that took getting used to.
What was the difference that you felt?
Well, there's a technical difference in that if you're doing two cameras on something, you've got to actually coordinate and make sure that you're both, you've got like stuff like the same white balance dialed in, and you're both shooting in the same frame rate and all of those basic things. And then there's differences in styles, and like some people like to move a lot, other people want to do like traditional tripod shots and stuff like that. So yeah, that took some getting used to. Although a lot of the time in the early days, because we weren't doing very big stuff, we essentially would work, when it came to client work, we'd kind of work individually. So
really? Okay.
Like we'd shoot and edit our own things. It would all flow into Teralon, it would all be under Teralon's brand, it would all flow into Teralon's bank account, and we'd share it all. But we weren't collaborating so much on like an individual level. Sorry, we weren't collaborating so much project to project on everything then. That was partly because the projects weren't really big enough to warrant it. What we were collaborating on a lot, and what most of our conversations were on how we market ourselves and where we want to go. And like, we were just constantly firing off ideas like, oh, I bet like there's so much money in this industry, if we can get them to hire us for this, then we can do that. And like, we spent like long nights, like just thinking about stuff like that for months and months and months. And we were very excited about, I don't know, just a lot of different things, because we felt, although we weren't collaborating on many projects at the time, our attitude was like, well, if we get these big projects, and we'll work together and make this, and be really cool and creative. And like, that was kind of our attitude. And then we started doing some kind of nightclub stuff in London, which Julian kind of took the lead on. He was doing a lot of that.
That's really interesting. Yeah, no, because it's almost like you're two freelancers that are stabilising the risk between you, but then also collaborating on ideas and then growing to something bigger.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, because the thing is, we didn't start a company in a traditional way, in that, I don't know, if you start a company from a stronger position, as it were, you invest in the company, you capitalize the bank accounts, you blah, 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 you have shareholders and probably have already some clients. And we didn't really have any of that. We were essentially starting from absolute zero. Like, we didn't have any money to transfer into the company bank account to start us off. We had to wait for someone to pay us. And that's kind of insanity to most people. But one of our advantages was that we were starting from, we were like 22, 23 years old, and we didn't have much money. We were used to living with our parents or living very frugally. So it felt like that was a good time to be doing that. Yeah, so in a way we were sharing the risk of being freelancers by working together. But we were also, at the same time as doing that, we were careful and we made sure that we weren't just two freelancers working under an umbrella company, like for tax reasons or whatever. We were actually working together to make a brand and target like new industries and projects that we wanted to work on, which I think was a big differentiator and actually started to make us think and act like a company, rather than individuals.
Yeah, nice.
That's important, I think.
What's the next step then? So like,
next step from there is, from there it becomes like, it's like kind of rinse and repeat, but with slowly climbing that ladder.
Yeah, I guess you eventually, as you were saying, you had that goal between you to, work on big projects together, and that was, what was the first project where, you hit that goal?
We had a big win, and this was a big win for a number of reasons. I don't know how to come across them, but essentially, one of the things that we were doing, which is a bit of a mistake, but it was a lot of fun, was targeting industries in things that like we really wanted to do. So like skiing and ski holidays, we'd kind of like to do that. So let's target it. And it's kind of fun. It's kind of a fun way of doing it. Like, it might not be a very good way of running a business. So I'd been looking at like luxury chalet companies in France, and I figured, well, some of these guys could use some video. And I basically had cold approached a load of them in Val d'Isère, and then I'd actually booked like a super cheap, like kind of holiday, went out by myself on the Eurostar train all the way to Bourg-Saint-Maurice to Val d'Isère, and I'd emailed a few of these companies, and then I'd emailed them again. I was like, oh, I'm actually in Val d'Isère on another project. Do you want to meet up while I'm here?
Was that a complete lie?
I mean, that was basically a complete lie. Like, I was just out there. I had camera gear with me because I wanted to film some stuff anyway.
The other project was the other ones that were going to accept you, right?
Yeah, basically. And one of them said, let's meet up. We've been thinking about doing video for a while. And they were one of probably the nicest chalet companies in Val d'Isère, if not most of Europe. Met with the kind of owner, and they liked what we had to say and organised for us to make 2 trips out to the Alps later in the summer, later in that season, to film some stuff for them. And that was a big win for a number of reasons. I think at the time it was by far our biggest single project in terms of budget. And it was also a big win because it was a success of a complete like cold approach.
Which you hadn't had with such a big client.
Which I hadn't, so it was our biggest client to date, and it had come from a complete, cold approach sale. So that was a big victory, I think, for us. Yeah, so we did that, and I think that gave us a lot of confidence. And because then we had all this nice footage of this luxury chalets and skiing and stuff, and a fairly decent client to our name who was like a kind of luxury brand.
Built the portfolio.
Yeah, and it really built the portfolio. And that gave us a little bit more confidence. So we continued in that kind of vein.
Yeah, because from what it sounds like, in terms of like niching down into a certain thing, was your thing still basically sports mostly?
Yeah, because at that point, like we were still doing like a lot of kind of like Bucks rugby and other sports stuff. We were doing skiing sports stuff with some like uni student ski holiday companies, and that had given us the base of this footage and this idea that we wanted to get more into the skiing industry. So, which is why we were targeting like luxury chalets, and we got that. We were still we had a very big sports focus, But the kind of thing that Julian and I would stay up late at night discussing was like, oh yeah, we want to be like luxury brands, we want to be like cars and luxury chalets and stuff. So that's kind of why we were targeting that. It was still within the industry that we were very interested in.
Yeah, but that's what you wanted to kind of
and we figured that it was fun and there was money in it. That was our reasoning.
So did you continue to progress with those kind of brands then after that?
In the end, we didn't actually keep doing much more in that kind of luxury travel space. Like we did some more sailing stuff, but those were kind of like nice one-offs, like fairly well-paid and fun projects. But we kind of expected that, especially once we'd done the chalet one, like it would just explode, and it didn't. And we were like, hang on, why not? And I think, again, we probably could have been better at our marketing and even more proactive, especially coming off the back of a big win like that. But then also, maybe we were really targeting the wrong industry, and like stuff like luxury travel and skiing, it is very luxurious and there's a lot of money overall in it, but generally budgets are very tight, and which means that they're not overly keen on spending a huge amount of money to fly crews of people out to the Alps to film stuff. I think sometimes that happens. You spend a lot of time looking in from the outside and thinking a particular industry is going to be really good for your business, and then when you break into it, you realise that
reality is very different.
Yeah, the reality is very different. So yeah, really what was a good consistent thing for us was like Bucks, like say university sports stuff, consistently doing that, highlights, documentaries, and then
which was filming rugby teams.
Yeah, so like filming rugby
University.
teams and filming small mini documentaries around like university rugby finals at Twickenham and stuff like that.
So that it seems like that kind of client really kind of pushed you through and kept you, steady.
Yeah,
throughout this whole time.
Yeah, that plus like doing your kind of more basic corporate stuff, which is like interviews and things.
You found out that this luxury space isn't what you dreamed of.
Yeah.
In terms of amount of money, possibly in it, for the amount of work you wanted to do to break into the space. Where did you go from there then?
So from there, we actually looked at universities, the education sector. It's an enormous sector, and we figured that a lot of them weren't doing great video and marketing stuff. Because what we were looking for is we were looking for sectors that potentially would have the money to support kind of like what we were offering and what we needed, and who weren't currently doing a good job in their kind of video and content marketing. Because we felt that we couldn't, whilst it was great, if you find a company who are already doing a load of amazing content, they're clearly buying into it massively, that's great, but you're going to have real trouble breaking in there if they've got a few suppliers already locked down doing great stuff for them. Like, especially as a young, inexperienced company, you don't have much to offer them aside from being cheaper, and that's not something you really want to compete on. So we figured the university industry, they weren't doing a lot of good marketing. It seems like a big industry. And someone I think set us up with a meeting with someone at, like a friend of Julian's, or someone set us up with a meeting of the communications team at Queen Mary University of London. And we went along to that, had this meeting, seemed pretty positive, they were interested in a lot of stuff. And then we just didn't hear anything from them for like 4 months. And that was like in the winter. And we were pretty disappointed by that. And then in the summer, they suddenly basically asked us to come along and like film their open day and do a load of content around that. So that felt like a big step forward at the time. And it also started us working with QMUL, which was a big institution, a legit institution. So that gave us a lot of confidence. Their budgets were big in comparison to a lot of the stuff that we were used to, and we felt that was a big kind of stepping stone for us into where we wanted to go. So that was probably another big phase of our progression.
Yeah, it sounds like initially you were kind of you were trying to aim for a lifestyle almost, but a bit blinded by what the reality of the lifestyle really was. But you started thinking, again, this is a business now, and started thinking of it, how do we, what is the best business decision rather than what kind of content you actually want to create. And the shift from, I think what it sounds like is and what you've told me before, is that you start enjoying more the business side of running a video production company necessarily.
Yeah.
I don't know, you can expand.
Yeah, I think at that stage, we were definitely trying to go for the lifestyle. We wanted to be the guys who are traveling and skiing and doing cool cars and sailing, and we've got to do some of that, and that was a lot of fun. And if you're 20 to 22 and you have the opportunity to do that and make a bit of money and do it, then it is great fun, and it'll be a good experience. But that's not a business model, and it shouldn't be a business model because it's a bad one. So because one, and I'll say why, because there's always going to be a million other people who would love to do that, and some of them are going to be willing to do it for cheaper than you, and someone's going to take them up on that, and that's it. It's game over for you.
I think if you are planning to go into something like that, is you really have to have a different spin on what everyone else is doing, essentially.
Yeah.
You have to offer something else that the rest of the market isn't.
Yeah, and be at the real upper echelons of that, very high-end kind of car commercial type stuff that takes very trusted and experienced crews to do. And you're just not going to walk into that if you're a 22-year-old freelancer. It just doesn't happen.
I think maybe people who have built audiences on social media, they might be able to kind of tap into that market because that is something different, rather than just saying I can only make films or take photos for you, so I can also promote you to my audience.
Yeah, for sure. If you've got a big following on social media, that opens a lot of doors. But
otherwise you're going to have a tough time, essentially.
Yeah, you're going to have a tough time breaking into some of those industries unless you've got something really unique. And you've got to be honest with yourself about whether you're being unique or not. Because it's hard to be. So I guess we transitioned from trying to make a lifestyle for ourselves into an actual business. We were confident in what we were selling, and that we were like, man, we make awesome videos. Why don't people want more of this stuff? And we knew that what we were making was of value, but I don't know, I guess we weren't putting it in front of enough people, or we felt that, I don't know, for some reason we kind of spent a lot of time scratching our heads as to why people weren't just jumping on it, I guess.
In hindsight, do you have an idea what that was?
Why weren't we getting as many clients as we thought we should get? We didn't have an actual kind of valuable proposition. Our proposition was we make awesome videos. Everyone needs awesome videos, right? And that's kind of true. Yes, that is kind of true. But we didn't have a really set plan, something we're going to make content that's going to populate your social media and generate engagement, and we've got a plan to do that for the next 12 months and all of that. Yeah. And stuff like that. We just didn't have it. There wasn't an actual proper offering.
That gets onto an interesting topic. Instead of just going to a business and thinking, I make videos for you, pay me money. It's what value do my videos really provide to your business?
Well, that's something of a Freudian slip there. I make videos for me.
Yeah.
And it's that was the problem. We were making, everything we were doing was backwards, really. It was, how can we make this happen for us? And it wasn't looking at how can we make what our clients or potential clients need or want happen for them. And we should have been thinking more in that direction from the beginning, but we didn't, because we were still kind of chasing that lifestyle. And it's only since we've started thinking about that the other way around that we've started to have more and more success. But I mean, yeah, so we got Queen Mary. That was fairly successful for us. We, and it added another like kind of pretty legitimate name to our roster.
At that point, had you started thinking about how does your value play into them?
We were starting to really think about that. We didn't have.
I guess you said you were trying to find markets that didn't have good video necessarily as much and weren't as saturated.
Yeah, well, I guess our value proposition that we had for the university sector was the university sector is becoming more and more competitive because of fees increasing and everything. So universities have to really justify themselves to their potential students. And your potential students are, teenagers basically. That's who you're targeting. And teenagers can be found in their natural habitat on social media and elsewhere. But they're very likely to respond well to good kind of social media content campaigns and things like that if you do it right. And our proposition was that if you get those things right, then they'd be tapping directly into their valuable audience. And I think that was accurate. And I think we did some good stuff for them. The reason that we haven't fully gone into the education sector as a whole like that is I think because as a sector it's very slow moving. Universities are enormous institutions. There's a lot of bureaucracy and it takes a very long time for them to change direction or add a new supplier. And that, wasn't quite what we needed. It wasn't quite the rocket fuel that we thought it was going to be under our business. It was good. It was definitely good and it was a push and a step in the right direction. But it wasn't quite that like explosion of business that we thought it would be. I think the lessons that we've learned from that are that, like, one, you've got to think about what's valuable to your clients, not what's valuable to you and what you want to do. Think about what your clients want and need and reverse engineer that. And secondly, industries aren't always what you think they'll be from the outside once you get into them. And thirdly, in my experience, private sector is better than the public sector. So like universities, for example, are typically examples of big public sector organizations or like governmental organizations and things like that. And these institutions and places have enormous resources, but I mean, you've got to be a certain kind of company set up in a way that's designed to go and get those resources with procurement departments and all of that. So if you're kind of small business or freelancer, I think that the private sector is mostly where it's at, because the private sector is where people make decisions quickly. They're willing to chop and change quickly and take you up on something new if you're offering something good, because at the end of the day, for them, money's on the line. And if you're offering something of value, then the private sector offers the best opportunity for the cream to rise to the top. And if you're consistently doing good stuff, then that's where you'll probably have the most luck.
I guess this is where you and Julian are starting to think about exactly what you're saying, what value you can provide to businesses. What steps did you take to focus on the private sector then? And how?
Yeah, so I guess I have to explain this sector or this phase of our business. So I guess we were a couple of years into it at this point, and we had a good run of then from there, like a year and a half, where we were doing this Queen Mary work, like this university work. We were doing more and more university sports work, and that formed like a pretty big part of our revenue. And we felt like we were really progressing towards being a proper company at this stage. Like we were, I think we broke through kind of 80 to 90,000 pounds revenue, and then kind of 110, 115,000 pounds revenue. We had like pretty good growth year on year. So we were growing pretty legit.
And costs wise, it's basically buying gear.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're working from our bedrooms.
Yeah.
Like keeping everything super, super like cost efficient, like minimal overheads. because we didn't have that constant security of knowing.
Because you are a service-based business, so apart from like gear, most of it's profit for the most part.
Certainly at that stage of our business,
Yeah.
Like the vast majority, we didn't have a lot of overheads at all. So a lot of money was just ploughed back into equipment, and we again had that debate of like, should we try and buy a red? Should we get like a finance deal for a red and pay like £500 a month or something for it? In the end, we never went down that route, and I think that was a very good decision not to. Again, you've got to have a base level of kit which lets you do a professional job, but don't spend more than you need to. At the end of the day, if you can do great work for high-paying clients with, the cheapest possible gear, and the end result is good, and the end client is happy, then you're like winning economically, because you've just got the most bang for your buck as possible out of the most economic gear.
Yeah, there's only so much of a difference in quality once you start reaching to a certain level of camera. Yeah,
and at the end of the day, buying an expensive camera or lens is not going to make you better at what you do. Like, it's just not. So don't waste your money. The time when you should be buying new high-end gear is when there's a very clear demand from your clients. So someone said, look, right, we want this project delivered in 4K. You need high frame rate. We need, this. And then you'd be like, right, okay, well, we clearly need better gear for that. Until that happens, I think don't waste your money.
What would you say is a better investment of your money at that point then?
Once you've got that base level of kind of pro gear that you need to do a good job, I'd try and spend your money as little as possible. I'd spend your time working on your skill set and your connections and your current clients. Because once you get to that stage where you've got some paying clients, any one of those could go on. Someone who's currently at one of your current clients could leave their job and they could go somewhere else where they're the marketing director. They've just got a promotion in a new company. They're a marketing director of a big company, and they want to bring in their own guys. And if you've done a good job for them and you've maintained a good relationship with them, then you're those guys who they're going to bring with them. So I dedicate a lot of time to doing very, very good work and building good personal relationships with your current clients.
Do you have any specific advice of anything you should invest your money on at that point, or do you think
in terms of specifically spending your money, once you're starting to make enough money that you're actually making a bit of profit and you're able to pay yourself a little bit of money, obviously you've got to survive, like you have to survive, then I'd actually look at getting some trusted collaborators involved. And when you have a job, when someone's hired you or your small new company for a job or something, maybe, and you're going to make some money on it, maybe try, rather than walking away with as much profit as you would, maybe try hiring someone to help you on that, or someone to do one of your roles instead of you, whether it be a camera operator or the editor or something like that. Try spending some of your excess money on
outsourcing.
Yeah, on outsourcing, because what that will get you is that time for yourself to then start thinking about, how are you going to progress your business, or maybe allows you to go and meet with that client or meet with that new client or whatever. And it's at that point that you start to, I think, really generate momentum. That's honestly how I'd spend money.
We're skipping a bit here because you hired Freddie as an editor.
Yeah.
Which is probably, in my opinion, probably one of the better first hires as a video production business, is getting the editor, because that does take a bulk of time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily take too much. I don't know, because I think a big problem for people doing this job is that they struggle giving away their creative ideas to the project. Did you have a problem with that? Did you and Julian?
Yeah, so oddly enough, let's step back a little bit. So we had those couple of years that I mentioned when things were kind of growing fairly nicely. It wasn't like crazy astronomical growth, but we were making more money each year, and we were gaining bigger clients, or our same clients were giving us bigger projects. So that was good. And I think the biggest mistake we made at that point was just assuming that was just going to continue in a linear fashion, because the next year, and we're getting fairly close to present day now, so like end of 2017, basically a lot of that work just dried up. Like university sports had their budget cut in half, and that half of the budget was what was allocated to us. And so that was just gone. That was, £30,000 worth of work just completely gone. And that can happen to a business, that can happen. So we kind of went into a bit of just like just need to survive kind of situation. And alongside that, I guess we had a bit of a rethink of, when we get through this, how do we market ourselves? How do we put forward our products? How do we structure ourselves in a way that means that and we can't guarantee that wouldn't happen again, but that protects us more from that kind of thing happening again.
It's a bit of a wake-up call.
Yeah, so
you can't get comfortable.
Yeah, so you definitely can't get comfortable. And so we spent like a good year, like a good 12 months, firstly just trying to survive, just like doing the work that came to us. And that also really pushed us to start selling ourselves. I did, the year that we nearly went out of business, I did more cold calling and cold emailing than I'd ever done before, because I was like, this is it. Like, we either sink or swim now. And at the same time, we also completely rethought how we offered our content and what our content offering was. And we, came back to the kind of subscription model idea, because we thought that it was going to be very valuable to clients, and it was going to be a sustainable business model, a sustainable, scalable business model for ourselves. So it was that 12 months kind of in the wilderness, as it were, of things not going so well, that really forced us to try and think very carefully about what our clients wanted and needed, to go out and sell a lot more and be more proactive. And I think it really lit the fire under us. Certainly it did for me, that we didn't want to be in that situation again, and we needed to really start being smart about how we ran our business in order to survive.
They say, in the situations of most discomfort, it's where you grow the most, and I think what you've described there is like a perfect example of that. Because before you were comfortable, you had your money coming in, you had your clients, but you didn't have a reason to, a real reason to try and really progress at that point. And then as soon as that's pulled out from underneath you, all that comfort, you're really starting to think, right, we need to sort our lives out at this point. And then I guess once you get back to that comfortable position, maybe on the same level that you were before, you're in a much better place to then continue growing from where you were than where you were at that initial point.
Yeah. I don't think where we were when everything kind of went bad, we had no concrete plan, and we didn't have the right kind of momentum to keep, to really accelerate our growth, because we just weren't thinking about it in the right way. But it took us taking that hit for a year, restructuring and rethinking everything, to then now, we've, by a long way, we've smashed through where we were back then. At first, when it happened, our only objective was to survive and get back to that level. But as we started working on it, we realized that was way too low an aspiration, and that we should be building to create momentum that's going to keep going way beyond that. And that's kind of brings us to here.
Yeah. So in theory, it was the best thing that could have happened to your business, even though it was a horrible time.
I mean, for me, I don't know, on a personal level, if we're going to cut this out, but yeah, that was a very tough year. And I think that was a very, very good thing for a variety of personal reasons, like relationships, and like family and stuff being unwell, and then the business very nearly going under as well, made me really think, it made me hungry for a start. It made me like properly hungry for the success that I wanted, and gave me a reason to actually have a good plan to achieve that. And I think something that, and then going back to something I referenced earlier, at the beginning, I guess a year ago, or just over a year ago now, we were approached by someone who had worked at British universities and colleges sports and had moved companies. And yeah, they'd liked working with us at Bucks, they'd liked what we'd done, and they wanted to put us forward for a big project at their current place, and they put us forward for that, and we ended up getting it.
Which is what we have now, but
Yeah.
you don't want to mention the client's name, essentially, and that's what
Yeah,
you're being.
we can't speak exactly about the names of those, but yeah.
But essentially, the biggest two projects that we're working on at the moment.
And then that big project initially turned into two big projects, which we're currently working on. So, which are our two biggest projects that we work on. So I think that's a very good example of, don't discount anyone that you currently work with. Always give them as good as you can, service-wise, and build personal relationships, because it's a very long-term investment. But when they do pay back, they normally pay back very well. The other thing that happened was when we first got that first big project, we thought that was going to be it for the year. Like this was us.
Are you talking about the first big project ever, the skiing one?
The first, like at the beginning of this year, when we first got this new big thing that someone put us forward for, we thought that was going to be our big project for the year. And it turned out that kind of everything that we'd been working on for the last 12 months, which had been pretty bad, suddenly all started coming in at once. So like all of the kind of like cold selling, all of the restructuring our offering, all of the effort that we've been putting out there and hadn't been getting much back on for 12 months, suddenly everything started to come back, which like massively reinstilled the confidence and obviously gave us the capital and the cash flow back that we needed to make sure that we never ended up back where we were in 2017. So
there's a lot of trust in the process when you're in that situation, because even though you might have been doing the exact same thing when you first were in that terrible position, you've really got to believe what you're doing and the ideas that you're coming up with, and then acting on them is the right thing to do, probably because you've got no other choice.
Yeah.
But I assume in that moment that, that's quite a scary thing to do.
Yeah, no, it was very scary because we were taking a big gamble that people were interested in, subscription services, and that we could sell that and we could make it happen and that people would buy it. And for a long time we doubted that because we were trying to make that work and no one was coming back to us. And then a few things came back eventually, and I think that's the thing where if you've got an idea or a service or a product that you're going to push, if you really first off, do some due diligence, think about it. Does the market need it? Are people interested in it? Can you deliver it? If you can actually answer yes to those questions, then you've got to back yourself and believe in your product, because it would have been very easy for us in October 2018 to just be you know what, I don't think we're going to get anywhere with this, just sack it off. And if we'd have just held on for 3 more months, then we would have, we are where we are now. But, we could have easily given up then, and we didn't. And I think if you've got something that you believe in like that, then you go until you literally can't go anymore, because otherwise you have no idea how close you could be to success when you finally give up.
It reminds me of that, that classic kind of image, I feel like it's been on social media, of the guy digging the tunnel. And there's a big diamond at the end of it or something, and there's one guy who's like come like this close, and he's like turned around, walking, and I don't know. That's exactly what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I truly believe in that, and I think at the same time we switched to being a much smarter business. We just thought about all of those things that our clients needed. We really tried to up our games. We were cold calling and approaching and doing all the marketing stuff we could afford to do. I mean, I'm not a salesperson. I don't do cold selling much. I don't particularly enjoy it. The experience of going through that and having to do it, I think, taught me a lot. And it gave me the confidence that I know that I can do that if I have to.
Yeah.
I'd rather sell to people who at least in some way buy into what we're doing already. But if I have to, then
you can.
Yeah, I know you can do it. So that was very good. I think that was very good for us as a business. In the end.
Yeah, in the end. Do you have a way of, someone right now who's in this position right now where, they're trying to make something happen, but they don't know when the light of the tunnel at the end of the light. What is it? The light at the end of the tunnel is. They don't know when it is, and how can you know whether what you're doing is delusion or reality?
Yeah, how do you know? Well, it's a very good question. It's a very good question. And at some point there is a bit of a leap of faith involved there, because, I'm not saying that we've reinvented the wheel.
No. But
we are trying to do something that a lot of other people in our industry are not doing as well. But I think just do your due diligence at first. If you can accurately answer and be realistic about why is this actually of value to our clients? Is this something that will bring value to our clients that is not currently in the marketplace?
Or not a lot of.
Or there's at least not a lot of it. And do we have a way of delivering it? You can't promise something which is totally beyond your capacity to deliver it.
Yeah.
If you can answer yes to those things, which leads to you being able to answer yes to do I believe in this, then I think you've got to take that belief all the way, basically.
Do you think, there's ways that you can test it almost, so you see little glimmers of a hope along the process, which lead to bigger things?
So definitely. Look for validation of your idea happening perhaps in other industries. And we took a lot of faith and confidence from the fact that subscription services like the ones that we were envisaging are happening elsewhere. They're happening in our own industry already to a certain extent, but things like Spotify, 10 years ago that wasn't a thing. Now it's a pretty big thing. Subscription services are coming, and we saw that, and we were like, we believe in this model because we see it happening elsewhere, and we were honest with ourselves. We asked ourselves a question: is there a good reason why this couldn't work in our industry? And if you can't come back with a good reason, then you should probably go for it. So
that's an interesting way of looking at it. See if it's working in other industries.
Yeah.
And then apply it to your own.
And see if you could apply it to your own. And similarly,
it's a way of innovating almost.
Yeah. If you're trying to, and then if you're going on about innovation, then if you apply the same questions to your industry but the other way around, it's you're going to recognize this, but it's like if your industry habitually does something, and no one knows why, it's just a thing that your industry does, then at least ask the question, well, can we get rid of this? Because it's just an old, outdated habit rather than something that's actually bringing any value. Again, if you can answer that question, then I think you should just back yourself all the way.
I think those are some good points. Because it's definitely, I think, a position which a lot of people will be struggling in. And there's a lot of the time you just got to stick with it and test what the market test the market and see what comes back.
Yeah, test it, do your due diligence, but also you don't have to completely reinvent the wheel. You can find ideas in other places, and at the end of the day as well, I very strongly believe in that you can have the best idea in the world, but if you don't have the personable skills and people skills to connect with people and find people who'll back it and who'll work with you or hire you, and you don't have the motivation to follow through on those ideas, then it's worth nothing.
And taking action.
Yeah, take action. Have the idea, great, but take action on it and invest a lot into relationships with people who will hire you or back you, because you're not going to get anywhere without that. So,
do you think there would have been a point where you would have walked away from that business model?
Having gone through what we'd gone through,
Yeah.
I was convinced that if we couldn't make this business model work, like if we literally got to like zero in the bank account and we were forced to stop, I was like, well, we either hit bankruptcy or this works. And like if we hit bankruptcy, then I'm done and I'm leaving this industry, because
Not worth it.
I can't see how it's sustainable otherwise. So I was like, either this works and we stay and we do well, or we keep trying to make it work until the wheels completely fall off, and that's it. I don't want anything more to do with it. But that was how strongly I believed that was
pure
really
faith.
the only way to go.
It shows really the mindset you need to be able to succeed as a business owner. It's do or die.
Yeah,
literally.
it's do or die, and I felt I could say that because I'd been in the industry then for like 4 or 5 years. So I was like, either this works now or it doesn't work. So you might also reach a point where it's like that, you're stagnating or you're falling backwards. Take action and just be like, look, you make this work now or it's not going to work. I think the same applies for many businesses across many industries.
Nice. Do you want to kind of explain how explain more about the subscription model and how you're developing it to someone who's listening?
Yeah, so I guess our subscription model...
what is the difference between what other, video production companies are doing in general? What is the real difference?
The standard video and content production model is you get hired to do a specific project or a specific shoot, you charge X amount for it, you deliver it to the client, and then the relationship ends. Or it ends until they hire you for the next thing. This is fine. This is a good way of doing a lot of projects. It is not a good way of constantly and consistently engaging your audience on digital and social media channels, because those channels require you to be producing high level content that engages your audience like regularly, every day, nearly every day. And unless you've got an enormous budget, you're not going to do that on a project by project basis. It's cost prohibitive for most companies. So our subscription model is basically a model that makes it affordable for a client to hire us to make content that regularly populates their social media, engages their audience, keeps that conversation going. And it means that we develop an ongoing and consistent relationship with our client, so we get to know their brand. Like, we don't just do a shoot, finish it, deliver it, and that's it until the next time they call us and offer us money. We're always thinking about their brand and what we can make differently next month, what we can do next month. And over 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, the value of that actually compounds, because the more we work with someone's brand, month on month, making content, working with their people, getting to know their people, the more we understand their brand and what their tone of voice is, and the more we can bring greater value and start pushing their brand and brand marketing in directions which is going to return more value for them. So that's the subscription model for content in a nutshell. So the benefits of the subscription model for the client are that, first off, they know they're going to have a library of high quality content that's relevant to their audience that they can put out regularly on social media. And like consistency on social media is enormous. You've just got to be on there so much. Secondly, I mean, from a budget perspective, if you are on a subscription model, then if you break it down to a per shoot cost, it works out as being more affordable for the client than just hiring you on a one-off basis, month by month or whenever you need it. So it's a little bit more economical that way. In terms of larger scale budgeting, it means that you can budget X amount for an entire year and you know that your content is going to be sorted for the whole year. That's a pretty useful thing for a marketing manager to be able to do, rather than halfway through the year calling up a production company and saying, we want to do this, how much is it going to cost? How much? Nope, can't do that. Like, if you've already planned ahead, then
no surprises.
No surprises. The third advantage is that the quality of the content and the relevance of the content actually increases the longer that relationship lasts, because we essentially become part of their marketing team in the way that we know their business, we know their people, and the content and its quality just gets better and better because of that. Those are the main advantages of a subscription model for content.
And the other part that we've now added to that is also managing the social media channels, which is where I come in. Do you want to kind of explain how that part started to happen?
Social media management has been a thing that we flirted with as an idea, actually, when we very first started off. When we very first started off, like 5 years ago, like 5-6 years ago.
And at the time, that was because...
At the time, so here's a difference in thinking, actually. So at the time, we thought of that because we wanted like regular income, and we saw that as a way to do it. Now, that wasn't wrong, but we were looking at it the wrong way. We weren't really thinking, okay, what value does regular social media management bring to our clients? Okay, great, it actually brings value. Now it also brings value to us. We were thinking about it the wrong way around, and in the end we scrapped the idea because we didn't want to move away from our core proposition, which was making good content. I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't say if that was the right or the wrong decision at the time, but
that was the decision at the time.
Yeah, that was the decision at the time. The social media management aspect of that now is that we, for a long time, had thought that we were making quite a lot of content for people. We were making content to brief, we were making good stuff, and a lot of people just didn't really have any clue how to use it. So they're paying for this content, and then it was getting either not released properly at all or released at bad times and getting very poor engagement, very poor traction across various digital channels. And we just felt that was a bit of a waste of our clients' money because they weren't getting the views and the eyeballs and the likes and engagement that they could have been getting with a more consistent social media strategy or release strategy.
And properly managed.
Yeah, on properly managed social media. We've decided to essentially roll that in as well, because we want to make great content for our clients, but it doesn't stop at making great content. In fact, what our clients want is, well, for their businesses to do well.
Best performance, yeah.
In order to get that in what we do, it means that they have to get good engagement, eyeballs, views and stuff on social and digital channels. So making a great piece of content that doesn't get any views is a waste of money. Making a great piece of content that is then released as part of a good social media strategy and gets loads of views and engagement is so much better. So essentially we're offering to make that regular content for our clients and then manage how it's actually pushed out and posted and spoken about on social media as well, so that
it gets the results.
Yeah, so it actually delivers some results, and they get what they're paying for, and they develop consistent, regular social media, which is, I cannot stress enough the value of that. Even if you're then looking to go into something like paid ads, paid recruitment across the various platforms that offer that kind of stuff, those are great tools, but your return on that paid advertising investment is going to be much greater if you've got organically active and consistent social media before you then start investing in paid ad campaigns.
Yeah.
So it's a force multiplier of, well, you're going to spend £10,000 on ads, great, those will do well. if you've spent a year building up or 6 months building up a consistent and organic social media reach first, that £10,000 you're going to spend on ads is going to go a lot further than it otherwise would have just if you'd done nothing.
For probably two reasons, which is one is social proof. So when people come and check out your social media channels, which everyone does nowadays, you know, they look at it and go, okay, these guys are legit. And the second one is that maybe they're not ready to buy immediately to whatever product or service that you're trying to sell them. Another benefit of that ad running and then them coming to your social media channel is that they might follow you, and then later down the line, once they become, you know, from a cold to a warm customer, not customer, what's the word?
Lead.
Yeah, lead, we'll go with lead. Yeah, they turn, you know, you can warm them up on your social media posts, essentially, until you can eventually convert them down the line instead of losing them straight away without having a good social media strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you're not going to do a huge amount of hard selling initially on social media, but you are going to develop a relationship with an audience and your potential customers that over time is going to put them in a position to actually engage with your brand and buy what you're selling. It's often nowadays, social media is the first part, you know, it's the handshake and the first opening bits of a conversation between you and your clients or your customers. So, you know, it better be good.
So yeah, so you had a client, you were, well, one of our current clients now that you were making content for, and then you just basically slowly pitched them on the idea.
Yeah, so what has been actually a really nice, from a business perspective for us, is that any one part of our services naturally leads towards more of them. So something that we're seeing quite a lot of is we are getting hired on that kind of one-off production basis, doing little bits here and there throughout the year for a client. And then as we build that relationship and we get to know their brand and we build trust, then it evolves into a conversation about us offering subscription services and working regularly with them. As they start to see the value in that, they start to trust us. And we're seeing that happen now with quite a few of our clients who we've worked with for quite some time, who we're just making, you know, it starts off with, hey, can you come in and film this one thing, this one-off project? Great, done, good. You do well on that, you develop a relationship, you build trust.
It's almost like a taster.
Yeah, and then that slowly builds and it builds until you're working towards a subscription model or an annual kind of, you know, contract type thing, which is good for them and it's good for us as a business.
Yeah, win-win.
Yeah.
I'm just getting onto the point that basically you started doing that with one client, and I was just getting the point to explain it to you. So why did you hire me?
Yeah, so basically we got that going with one client, and our attitude was always that if we can get even one client like signed up on this, that is all of the proof that we need that this is 100%.
For the full social media.
Yeah, for social media management with content subscription.
Yeah.
If we get even one client signed up on this, that's all the proof that we need that this is a goer. Like, this is really going to work. And we got that, and just started working on it. At the same time as a lot of other stuff was kicking off for us, a lot of other projects. And that led to essentially me just being overwhelmed, which is a good position to be in because it means your business is growing, but don't delay too long on getting help, because otherwise it's all going to fall apart. If you don't bring help in at some point, you're either going to drop one of the many plates you're spinning, and that's going to be bad for your business, or you're going to have a mental breakdown or something, and that's also bad for business. So at that point, that brings us to you being here, essentially, Santi. So you fell quite fortuitously into our lap.
So it's like, so we basically got on to, you know, the second outsource.
Yeah.
Basically.
So we haven't actually gone over our first hire,
let's
outsource.
Talk about it now.
We'd known for a long time that editing was essentially our bottleneck. You can shoot and plan and make a huge number of projects. You can do a lot. If you're working every day, you can do a huge amount of stuff. But if you're working every day and there's only two of you and you're both out shooting and planning and selling or whatever, you can't edit very much. And editing was just becoming an enormous bottleneck for the number of projects that we could process in any given time. And we very quickly arrived at the conclusion that we needed to outsource the editing. And we'd known that for several years, even before the crash or whatever it is you want to call it, even before that. But we hadn't really been bold enough to take that step because we were obsessed with keeping overheads low. We weren't in the right growth mindset. We were trying to just kind of slowly bimble along rather than do things which would really accelerate our growth. So after we had that the really bad year, or like towards the end of that really bad year, we'd got into our minds that right, next time that we're going to start outsourcing the editing, because it's the only thing that's going to free us up enough to keep building momentum rather than just getting a load of new clients, great, then not doing any selling, not doing any business development, and then it just tails back off again. So we knew we were going to, as soon as things picked up, or as soon as they started to pick up, we were going to get someone in to help us. And fortunately, Julian's younger brother, Freddie, is also pretty interested in filmmaking. He'd done a course in it. He'd been doing a bit of his own thing. He was quite into editing. And yeah, he was keen to start doing some little freelance editing jobs for us here and there. Firstly on some simple projects, so we could train him up essentially on our style and the way to do it. And he took to that really, really quickly. So beginning early 2019, he started working with us on a regular monthly basis, on a monthly contract. And that was a big bump of the needle actually for us.
Yeah.
And has proven to be so. Because at first when you do that, you're like, I'm kind of sacrificing quite a lot of money here that if I'd edited it myself, that would have been my money. But again, it's bad way of thinking. If you've got that extra money, then and you've got someone you can trust to outsource it to, then do it.
Hiring someone to do something allows you to do a job which is going to pay the business more per hour than you're getting paid per hour.
Yeah.
Well, but you're paying that person per hour.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Essentially, it's going to allow you to grow your business faster.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, would you, going back to when you did have a decent amount of money, and you were comfortable, and we were saying, and you were debating whether you should invest in camera equipment or anything, would you have hired an editor sooner?
Going back now, I would have, whether or not it would have worked with Freddie at that time, I don't know, but in a perfect world, if I went back now, at that time when we were starting to really build some momentum, if I could go back there now, I'd get Freddie or
just
equivalent Freddie, an editor on board, straight away, and get them to start working on those things, which would in turn then free me up to
do more.
Start enacting some of the things which we have since learned. That would have been a good decision at the time. We didn't do it because we were too busy trying to we were still in the mindset of trying to maximize our profit
instead of reinvesting
and reduce overheads. And it's not that we were against reinvesting, but we weren't thinking about the right ways to reinvest.
I guess it's like at that point, that mindset is what took you to the place that you were there. So you didn't think, I need to change.
Yeah, as a freelancer or a small business owner, you do have to survive. And to survive, you've got to be frugal sometimes. That's unfortunately the reality. But the hard part is that after a couple of years of doing that, that gets so ingrained into you that it's hard to let go of that and then loosen the belt a bit at the time when you need to. And a lot of people go through that, and that opportunity passes away, and that's it. So yeah, don't be afraid to spend the money and get the help in and take the hit on the profit at the right time, because that's rocket fuel for your growth.
Which is essentially kind of what you're doing here for a second time.
Yeah.
With me.
Yeah. So having got Freddie on and him making that massive difference, and having started working on some big projects as well, and a lot of things this year which have really helped us grow, we took the decision in the middle of this year to properly get an office. There's no more working from home. We don't want to, overheads, fine. We're willing to take on overheads now, because we saw with Freddie the massive impact that had on our ability to do more work and free up our time. And so we were then like, yeah, okay, we can. Then it became very, very clear to us. It was like, okay, get an office, we can get people in it, gives us a base to build on, and we can build more and more, and we can actually get that momentum going. Which, I guess kind of brings us to here and you being here.
Yeah.
And it's hopefully not the last hire as well, because it's like, it's made it very clear in our minds that we need to put a lot of money and effort into growth now. And when we have momentum and have the opportunity to do that, then it's time to strike, rather than getting comfortable and waiting until it
Which was your mistake.
Wrong. Yeah.
Before the big crash.
Yeah, we just didn't realize how easily things can slip away if you rest on your laurels. So now that we've had a bit of a second chance, we're not making that mistake again. I'd rather make a mistake of overextension at this point than not enough and go the other way, because at least it would be a new mistake and we can learn something from that.
Repeating what you did
before.
Rather
than repeating the same mistake.
I mean, we've gone through a lot.
We've gone through a lot. I was not expecting us to talk for this long.
That was heavy. I mean, we could talk for more. We can go deeper, but I think we've got to present day, and we could go deeper into social media and what we think best strategies are and all that sort of thing. But I think we can leave that for another podcast.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think there's some really interesting stuff in there, and I think I don't know, maybe just as closing point, we're definitely a lot more successful and a lot closer to where we wanted to be when we started this whole thing than we ever have been before. But we're nowhere near the end of that journey. I don't think there is an end to that journey. No. And I don't want to say that, obviously it's super successful, this is the model, this is how you get here. But I don't know, having been through the experience of going from absolutely nothing, no experience, freelancer, to make it up as you go along, I think some of the things that we've covered in here would be shortcuts that would have made that process easier had I known them. And it was a very long slog to get here. That's also validating in itself, and it is kind of worth it. It's very worth it, but it's a very useful learning experience to experience what it's like to fail and for things to be difficult and to take the wrong path, because it eventually leads you to something better if you stick with it.
Yeah, going on a deeper level. This is something that I believe that going through discomfort for a purpose is what brings meaning to people's lives. Because if you're someone who's just comfortable, and you might have a lot of you're financially secure, but you don't really have anything going on in your life. You might be comfortable, but I think you'd be bored and have a life with a lack of meaning. So it's about finding a purpose that means something to you, and then going through the struggles of that makes your life meaningful.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Because I think for me, learning over the past couple of years that one of the things that really gets me fired up and that I really enjoy is the business side of running a business. I love filmmaking, I really do. But I think I'm even more excited about running businesses or running a business and growing it and
breaking through the barriers.
Yeah, breaking through those barriers. And for me, I don't know where exactly that ends, but the joy of trying to break through those barriers and trying to achieve that success is a massive purpose, and it makes it a lot easier to do hard stuff like stay late or come in early or whatever it is, because you have purpose, and that makes it a lot easier to suffer through stuff. So absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. As you were saying, in your first days before you even had a paying client, it was that vision of you, that goal of making it, which I'm sure is probably less than whatever situation you're in now.
Yeah.
But that's what allowed you to get through that. Before we close then, what is right now that goal that you're aiming for? Not that it's the end goal, but it's what you want to reach.
I think it becomes easier to set more defined goals as you go on and you achieve some things. Because when you haven't really achieved much of anything, then everything is just a kind of very nebulous idea. Sitting here now in this office, it's easier to then foresee a route forward, and it feels more real. So I think, I guess goals for now are to, I think, build the team, to devolve even more of our current responsibilities and tasks to people that we can trust and who will do a good job, and to look for people like yourself who are going to be part of leading that future team, I think, as well, and to really keep that fire lit and make it actually exponential, because I think we found the formula now. We found a formula that works, and we want to really go all in on getting all hands on deck to make that happen.
And developing it, because it's not like we found the formula.
Yeah, no, I don't want to say we found, that's why I said we found a formula.
We found a formula that works right now, but the whole point is we want to keep pushing it and finding the boundaries of that and evolving it.
Yeah, definitely. I think...
and that's what I feel like I'm also really excited to do with you guys. And as we have been doing, we've learned a lot already.
Yeah,
within
huge amount.
So, the progress that we've made from, when I first started here a few months ago to where we are now, we're starting to really get an idea of, what works best and evolving from that.
Difficult to put very hard numbers on things, but I'd like us to have a team. In the next couple of years, I'd like a team at least double the size of what we are now. And I'd like our offering and what we're doing to have evolved significantly, to add new elements and to be up to date with whatever's going on in the market at that time for our clients. I think the key thing is just, keeping that fire lit, like that hunger for it, and keeping everyone who gets involved passionate about it, because there's a lot of stuff that's really exciting and there's a lot to be excited about. And the really exciting thing is that now there's a route that we can actually see. Like previously when I started out, I knew where I wanted to get to, I just couldn't see the route. Now we have an idea of where we want to get to, and there is actually a path ahead of us. So
it's all about action.
Yeah, all about action, and it's exciting, very exciting.
Nice. Right, I think that was solid.
Cool, that's it.
First podcast done. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
And subscribe, because hopefully we're going to be doing more of these.
Yeah,
hopefully we'll do another one with Julian, probably more with the team. And in the future, hopefully more with, other people in video production or social media. I don't know. We'll just see where this goes. It's a new thing for us. And again, it's something that, it's testing new waters and evolving.
Yeah, really exciting.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, Santi.
Yes.
Yes.
Done. Woo! Oh my god.
That was a lot longer than I expected it to go to.
Is this reality or am I pretending? That was poetry, huh?